So for those of you that don't know me, my name's Brett, and thank you very much for coming along. Just to let you know, this session is recorded for those that can't make it today, and also for you to go back and review it. It should be up on the Facebook page sometime early next week. But if you want a link to it, I should be able to provide that sometime this afternoon when the link becomes available. So just send me an email and I'll do that for you. Okay, so today follows on from last week where we were discussing what it requires to be an academic and the fact that we have to be motivated and give ourselves enough time to get our work done to the best of our ability. So once we've done our research, and research includes two things. One, getting our resources, and two, reading those resources. Now, when we're reading resources, this sort of leads into the paraphrasing component of today's session. When we're reading our resources, we are not reading for words, we are reading for ideas. Okay, and so therefore it's very, very important that we understand what we're reading. So far too often, I think students think that they can look at a resource and think, oh yes, this looks very valid, but I don't really understand what they're saying here, but I know it's important, and that makes it very difficult for you to paraphrase. If you don't understand what they're saying, but you think it's important, it's very important to come and see someone like me or the learning advisors in the resource centre here, or indeed your lecturers, and ask them, what does this actually mean? Because that will give you the idea. And then once you've got the idea and you understand the idea, it's very easy to paraphrase. An example I always give is, I hold up a fistful of pens. If we look at all these pens, they're all individual in their own way, but they all have exactly the same function. They are all exactly the same idea, but they are presented in a different way. They are paraphrased, if you like, in a different way by the producer of that pen. So that's a very real and simple example of what we mean by paraphrasing. It's taking somebody else's work, understanding their work to a degree where we understand the ideas in there so well that we can report that idea from our own perspective, from our own view, from our own background, and from our own culture. That's extremely important as an academic to be able to do that. So to give you an example of paraphrasing, I guess the best way to do it is to actually go to the library. So I'm just going to share my screen here. If you do have questions while I'm sharing my screen, you might be best just to unmute yourself and say, hey, Brett, or something like that, and ask the question, because it's a little bit difficult for me to have the chat on at the same time while I'm sharing. So here is the JCU website. Okay, it's very, very easy to get to. In fact, maybe we should start at the JCU website. Okay, so when you're looking for your timetable, time management, etc., obviously JCUB is very good for all that, and understanding who's who in the zoo here on the campus. But when you're doing your research, you must go to the JCU website. Okay, and the first thing you should always do is go to the library and obviously into one search. Okay, so at the moment, very topical is COVID-19, obviously. So if we want to look up COVID-19, we can just type it into one search there. Now, I don't have a great understanding of COVID-19, so this might be something that I want to learn. And so here we have COVID-19, and there's a number of things there. So here we are. This looks interesting to me. COVID-19 meets the anti-vaccine movement. So there's a number of ideas just in that heading that already have me going, I wonder what that actually means. What's anti-vaccine mean? What's the anti-vaccine movement mean? And what's COVID-19? What is it? You know, I've heard a lot about it, but there's no one that's actually described it for me in any great detail or made me understand what the thing actually is. So if we go into this document, okay, we can view the full text. Okay, and so here we are. We have there's a previous article in the issue. This is from a particular journal. You can see that once you're inside the journal and looking at an article, you can look at previous articles or next article. So if a particular journal interests you in terms of the assessment you're doing, that can be very useful. Just moving through the journal, you might find 2 or 3 articles very quickly that are associated with, because often journals are created with association in mind. Okay, so here we have, now what I'm doing now is I'm skimming. So I'm just looking for the information I'm actually interested in. So here we have conspiracy, we have anti-vaccine, okay. Other falsely claims the headed, So we're getting an idea here that the anti-vaccine movement is something that doesn't obviously against vaccine. I guess that's what anti-vaccine means. So like the one on Michigan, include protein camouflage message. So I'm looking at what I'm doing, I'm looking at the topic sentence of each of the paragraphs, and I'm just getting an understanding for each of those paragraphs to see if there's actually something in there that could be interesting to me. And I've got to the end of this paper and I'm sort of thinking, okay, I'm not really understanding it. So I would have to read it more thoroughly to get a stronger understanding of the paper itself. Okay, so let's just read one of these paragraphs. Is this temporary, or can we expect measles or other vaccine preventable diseases continue rising? The CDC trends show that vaccinations among young children less than 24 months are beginning to rebound, although they remain suppressed among older children. This means that this year's cohorts of school may not receive their second dose of measles vaccine, making breakouts more likely. So all of a sudden, what we see by reading more closely and more deeply is this is a serious issue. So what we're seeing is that this writer is suggesting that the anti-vaccine movement, okay, is causing some concern in terms of the re-emergence of diseases that we've had under control for some time. And I guess if we were to read this more, and I'm just guessing, if we were to read this more, that maybe they're going to associate that to the COVID-19 crisis that we're in, and they're going to make some association with the fact that it's going to be difficult to control COVID-19 if the anti-vaccine movement still is as strong as it appears to be from the start of this journal. So we've got a bit more of an idea of what anti-vaccine movement is. We've got a little bit more of an understanding of the concerns around that anti-vaccine movement, and we can now be formulating in our own mind our own views on those things, and that makes it much easier to paraphrase. So if I was to start a document, bear with me. And obviously I'm going straight into the body of the work here. I'm not worried about the introduction at the moment. All I want to do is reiterate and rewrite what I've just read. So, okay. So I'm just going to stop sharing. So after you've had a quick read of that, it is apparent from current research that diseases that were being brought under control are now becoming more prevalent in society, and some suggest this is a direct result of people who do not like the use of vaccines. Okay, so that's what I've got from the paper. You may agree or disagree. That's fine, but that's my interpretation of what I read, and I'm allowed my interpretation as long as I'm not bending, breaking what was actually written there. And I don't think I have. I'm allowed to make my own view entwined in the facts that I found. So I'm just going to stop sharing there for a moment, and I want to get some feedback from you about what you think about what I just put there. What I might do is I might just copy what I just put there, and I'll put it in the text so you can still read it while we're not sharing. So any feedback on that? Any thoughts? Okay, so let me just share my thoughts with you, and maybe it might instigate some thoughts from you. Well, I really am interested in your thoughts, not mine. One thing is clear from what I've written there, that I haven't used any of the words from the journal article itself or the article itself. What I have done is I've thought about what I've read. I've internalized that. I've reflected very quickly. Normally, this process would take a number of days or weeks because you'd be reading lots and lots of things, and you have to try and remind yourself where you got each of your ideas. So it is important when we're doing referencing to keep an annotated bibliography. Okay. Okay. So I want our focus not to be on the actual content, the actual subject matter. I want our focus to be on how I have gone about taking what I read and producing my own piece of work that's based on it. And obviously, I haven't referenced it yet. We've got to do that. I'll show you how to do that in a moment. But what I want you to focus on here is the idea of paraphrasing. Okay, so that's what I'm asking you to forget about the subject matter. The subject matter is important, absolutely, but what I want you to focus on today, what we're here to discuss and understand, is the process of paraphrasing. I read something, I get the ideas, and then I reproduce those ideas in my own words, from my own understanding, from my own background, from my own culture. and from my own perspective. And there's a little bit of bias in there as well. And we have to acknowledge that, and big part of writing an assessment is balance. So I would also have to acknowledge there's a bit of balance, there's a bit of bias there, but we do need to focus on facts. So we out there in the journalist world, they're always looking for both sides of the story. Not always both sides of the story are actual factual. Okay, and to be quite honest with you, having some knowledge of the anti-vaccine movement, I would contend that there's not a lot of facts backing up what they're saying in terms of the number, the actual problems that they tend to suggest. So let's just focus in on the paraphrasing bit. In terms of paraphrasing, do you understand that what I have done there is I've taken the work of another individual, I've filtered it through me, and it's come out the other end through my fingers as that paragraph there. And so very, very quickly you can do that. Once you become practiced, you can go from idea to your words, idea to your words. And as we can see there, we've created that very quickly. And how long did, let's have a look. And we've got 40 words there, okay? So, you know, what's that, about 5? It would have taken maximum of 5 minutes for me to do that. So it doesn't take long, and then once you've got idea after idea, you can start to link ideas to each other. That's very, very important. Okay, so if we're going to focus in on 1 or 2 words, then obviously if there is going to be, from time that you're going to be using word for instance, the idea is to move away from the actual sources words altogether. So a nice question, but what you have to assess for yourself while you're writing is have a look at the original piece of work, have a look at your work, and ask yourself, how similar is this? Okay, and you have to be very honest with yourself, and you have to say, okay, it's a bit too similar, I better rewrite it. Or you could say to yourself, no, I think that's fine. Now, if you're not sure, then that's where people like myself and your lecturer come in. You can say to them, look, this is the paper, this is the area in the paper where I got this idea, and this is how I've expressed it. What do you think? Do you think I've paraphrased it appropriately? And your lecturers will tell you. And as you get more practiced at it, you'll have to do that less and less. And in the end, you'll be writing your own work very easily. Okay, paraphrasing is a difficult skill to pick up, but it's a difficult skill to unlearn. Once you learn it, it's there with you forever, and it's not something. It becomes a natural part of how you write as an academic. So, any other questions? Have I lost anybody? Is there anything you want me to focus on or tease apart that I've mentioned? All right. Oh, I think that pause was long enough. No one seems to be concerned by that, so that's good. We're all on the same page there. So here we have my paraphrased portion of an assessment. Okay, and here we have the actual work. Now, what I want to do is I want to go back to our results. So here's our results that we got when we looked up COVID-19. And if we have a look, this is the item that I chose. Okay, so how do I reference that? Okay, very easily, it turns out. You'll see these 2 little quotation marks associated with all items that you look up on one search, okay? I can't be clearer than this. When you're doing research for university work, you must use your library search engine. And the reason for that is Google, websites, Wikipedia, etc., there is no way known that you can, hand on heart, say, this is a valid academic article. And the reason is that the search engines that you're using there are not created for academic writing. They're created for general use. Now, even Google Scholar, even though it has more of a focus on academia, unfortunately, there are an awful lot of articles that get on the Google Scholar that are not academically valid. So the best way to be sure that the resources you're using are academically valid is to use one search. It's not difficult to use, it's as easy to use as Google is, and it's going to give you resources that you can be confident you can use in your assessments. And the big thing about it is that the publication date here you can control. And I know that you can do that in Google Scholar and Google as well, but we know we've got academically valid resources from within the last 12 months or the last 3 years or the last 6 months or whatever it is that you want to focus in on. Okay, so we'll go back down to this here. We click on Cite this item. Okay, and this gives you a little bit of a format preview, but that's not the right format. So if you want the right format, we use AMA or APA, okay? So if you're doing a legal subject, a law subject, then you must use the AMA, the Australian Medical Association. But if you're doing any other subject outside of law, you must use the APA. Now at the moment, APA 6 is the standard still. The APA 7 hasn't been accepted by all the university bodies of the world, so we're still using APA 6. APA 7 is there for you to start getting used to. There's plenty of resources there if you want to see what the differences are between 7 and 6. They're not many, they're not very. In fact, a lot of the changes are making it easier. So we click on there, APA 6, and there we have it. There's our reference. So we copy our reference. Copy our reference. And I learned a new trick from Vizak yesterday, so I'm very happy to share it with you. If we open Excel, I'll just get Excel to open up here. I open a new blank workbook. What we can do is paste our resource into Excel. Now you might be thinking, why would you want to do that, Brett? That's a bit silly. I'm going to use it in Word. Well, we'll see. Let's just bear with me for a moment. Okay, so that's our first reference item. Okay, now, how do I cite it? Well, that's very easy. Okay, so I go back to my work that I did. It is apparent from current research that diseases that were being brought under control are now becoming more prevalent in society. So that is the idea. That is the idea that I got from this article. So that's where my citation must sit. It must sit right behind the society there. So put a space and I open a bracket, okay? And what I must do is use the name of the author. So in this case, that's Hotez. And then a comma, and then the year. And this was written in 2020. So 2020. That's it. That's the citation. Okay, and the citation sits in the middle of the topic sentence. I haven't finished this paragraph. This paragraph would continue on. First of all, trying to develop it a little bit more, maybe by referring to some ideas we would have had earlier in the paper, maybe by referring to some ideas we have later in the paper, or just developing it from the actual idea that we have there. And then we would have a linking statement which would link it either backwards or forwards within the paper. So one of the things that we must have when we're doing citation is understand that the citation never resides at the end of the paragraph, ever. If you ever have a citation at the end of the paragraph, it's wrong. And that's just full stop, okay? Citations must sit with the idea that you got from the resource that you read. And the only way you'll know where to put that citation is by understanding the idea that you got from the resource that you read. And you must read the idea. Now, you saw how I read that document. I didn't read the whole thing. I skimmed it. And then I thought, I really don't understand it. And then I sort of looked for paragraphs that I thought was most interesting, and I read that thoroughly and gained a strong understanding of it. And the more you read, the stronger your understanding of that paper becomes. There might be some papers you just want to utilise for a quick reference to a particular idea. You don't have to read that whole paper as long as you're confident that you understand the idea that's represented there. Okay. So that's that reference there done. And now, if we finish the document, obviously there'll be a lot of work in front and a lot of work behind this sentence, okay, in a proper document. But when we get to the end of the document, we insert a page break, and we now have our references. Now, references should be, and we should always be using our styles when we're creating our documents. So it should be heading 1. Now, I'm sorry, this looks a bit bigger than the heading, and that's because I made it bigger so you could easily read it. That would normally be size 11. Let me just get it back to normal. So how do I get it back to normal? I just click on normal, bang, okay? Does it for me. So always use your style sets that are provided to you in Word, and then you'll have a nice consistent document. Okay, so here's his references. Now, before I put away that reference in here, I can now just copy it, go back to my references page, and paste it in, okay? Now, we have to be careful because the APA standard actually requires us to do a little bit of indenting here. So we have to change the way the paragraph looks, okay? Just click on here so it's the same style. Okay, so I've got to make this look like the APA standard. So how do I do that? Up here in the paragraph, okay, we have multiple line spacing. That's no good. I want to make that single. Okay, before and after, that's okay. We do want a little bit of space after. Okay, now we want a hanging, what's called a hanging indent, okay, in our reference list. We hit OK, and it pushes it in for us. Okay, so it's nicely done by Word for us. And that's what we want in our paragraphs in our reference section. Okay. Now, you might be thinking, why were you using the spreadsheet, Brett? That's a very good question. So let's go back to our research. And let's say we're going to use this document here. Okay. I'm just going to pick them now. I'm not going to read them. We're not going to understand it. We're not going to do any paraphrasing. I just want to show you some tricks with referencing. So we click on here again, Remember, we're using the APA standard. We might be using AMA, but today we're using the APA. And doesn't want to work. Okay, that's interesting. Let me try that again. Right, and there's the APA 6. Okay, so we can now copy that one. And we paste that one into our spreadsheet. Go back again, close that down, scroll down a bit further. This looks interesting. Okay, so click on this one. Okay, again, I want that in. So you have to go in twice sometimes. Okay, so again, it's a nice, not a lot of journal articles here. I might find a journal article in a minute. And so we go back into and paste that in there. Okay, and finally, I'll just do one more and I'll make it a journal article just to. So we click on journal article. I'm just amazed how much information's out there already on, you can see a lot of it is newspaper stuff and COVID, but there's a lot of information. People have already been writing about COVID here. Okay, so we click on this one. Okay, we want the citation in APA 6. And it gives us the right format. Copy that. I might do a citation to this one just to give you some idea of what that would look like. So whoops, and I'm going to put that one in there. Okay, so it doesn't matter what type of resource you have, you can use that little citation tool, and I think it's very, very useful. I used to use Word. I used to actually teach students right up till 3 months ago to use Word, but now that I've realised that citation tool is so useful, I don't do that anymore. And with Visac's little trick here, referencing becomes a doddle. So we copy that, okay, and what we do now is we say, okay, I want to sort that, and I sort it A to Z, and it sorts it into alphabetical order for us. Isn't that lovely? So we don't have to worry about our alphabetical order anymore. It's there. We can copy that. Obviously, I want to rewrite my references now because I've got a few more, and paste it all in. Okay. Now, as we can see, by doing that, it's actually put it in as a table, and we don't want it as a table. Okay. So we click on text only. Okay, boom, done. So very, very simple. Gee, I wish I knew this a long time ago. This is a much easier way to do your referencing. It's all done for you. There's nothing you have to really think about. The only thing that you have to worry about is your citation. So let's imagine somewhere down here, we're writing something, and obviously that's all gobbledygook. But if, let's say that's our idea there from this paper here. Now notice there's lots and lots of names in there. Now, I mightn't be sure, how do I cite that? Okay, because there's so many names there. I don't think I'd write all those names, but I'm not sure. So what I do is I go to the guides. Okay, so let me show you how I found those guides. So we go to JCU again. We go to library, and we go to guides. Okay, Now you can look up the guides here if you wish, but I don't know what the guide actually is called. So I'm going to click Browse All Library Guides. This takes me to this page here, which is the how-to guides. I want to go to the how-to guides. And I want the APA 6. APA 7's not up and running as yet, so we'll just use APA 6 for this time. If your lecturer wants you to use APA 7, get them to come and talk to me, because APA 7's not actually available to you at this stage. This is the guide here, okay? And when you go into the guide actually refers to APA 6, okay? So we don't have the guide for the 7th as yet, so just click on the 6th, and down the bottom there, you'll see your little PDF version. Okay, so we've got a journal article there. And how many authors do we have? Oh, I don't remember. Okay, so I'll go back to my document. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6. Holy smokes. I've just noticed something here. There's a few spaces there that we can probably get rid of. So just be mindful of that. Always clear up any little errors that come through. Okay, so we've got 6. Okay, 6. So go back. I've lost it. There it is. Okay. So we've got 6, and it's a journal article. And we've got 6 or 7 authors. So we click on 6 or 7 authors. And here we are, 6 or 7 authors. You just put the name of the first person, et al. Okay? 3 to 5 authors. Okay? You put 3 or 4 or 5 in the first citation. But if you've got subsequent citations, you only have to use the first author. If it's 2, it's always 2. And if it's 1, obviously it's always 1. Okay? But 6 or 7, you don't have to write them all out. We just use the first name and then this et al, which means and all. Okay? E-T-A-L, and don't forget the full stop with a comma and then the year. Okay, so let's go and have a look at our document. So this is the first author. So I need to copy his whole name, or her whole name, not sure what sex they are, gender, sorry. So Control V, okay. We might just fix this up. Bear with me. Styles. No, didn't want to do it. Okay. Ouch. Okay, so I'll bring this back to 11. Okay, so Gonzalez hyphen Dombrovskis, that's their name. E-T-A-L full stop, comma. Then we need to know what year. So again, go back down to our reference list, and the year is again 2020. How surprising, it's about COVID. Okay, so we go back into our document and put 2020. Okay, so that's just a little bit of rubbish there. That's just showing you how to reference multiple authors if you've got multiple authors in a particular academic work. All right, so I'm just going to stop the sharing at the moment. Hopefully that's demystified referencing for you. Utilize your tools. Make sure you always sort your references, and using the spreadsheet is very good. When you copy and paste that, make sure you use that little tool. I'll just do that again. I'll just copy those, go back to the document, just overwrite what we've got there. It'll give you a table because it's come from a spreadsheet. Use the text tool. Make sure when you're creating the paragraphs for your references that you go into paragraph and you make it a single line spacing with a bit of space behind and a hanging indentation. Okay, if you do that, it'll look perfect and you won't have to mess around with it at all. What should you not do when paraphrasing? So, well, what you should not do is quote. You should not use the words of the author at all. You have to get the idea from reading and reflecting and understanding, and then you need to then impart your understanding, your background, your experience, your culture onto those words. And far too often when I read assignments from students at this campus, I read very English sounding, American sounding assessments. And that tends to suggest to me that there's not a lot of understanding going on from the students in regards to how important their cultural background is to their own writing. We don't want you to be presenting to us what we could write. We want you to be presenting to us things that we haven't thought of before because we don't have the cultural understanding that you have, and we want you to bring that cultural understanding to your work. So when you're interpreting, and this is what we do as academics, we interpret works, it's very important to present work that comes from you and is representing you and your background, your culture, etc. So for current assignments, we need to use APA 6. Yes, not as haven't got any resources for 7 at the moment, and I'm not aware of any mad rush to get 7 out there at the moment. I think there's some issues surrounding 7 at the moment, so just use 6. How to reference edited articles? Well, it's just the same way. Okay, so if you've found an edited article inside OneSearch, it'll give you those quotations. If you're finding articles outside of OneSearch, and what you must do is go back into OneSearch and see if you can actually find that article in OneSearch. If you can't, then it's very important you come and talk to someone like myself or your lecturer to make sure that that resource is actually academically valid. Because if you can't find it in OneSearch, it's a very sure sign that that resource that you want to use is not academically valid. Now, of course, there's a bit of a difference if you're doing marketing, for instance, or a subject that's more focused on reality. Then obviously you may not find a lot of research in a particular area, let's say on marketing of Coca-Cola, etc. So in that regard, obviously you will have to do your referencing from the ground up. Word has some really good tools for that, and I can show you that. It only takes 5 minutes. I can show you that, but I'm not going to show you that because I want you to focus on using the tools that are provided to you by the library. You use this idea of using the spreadsheet with your referencing so we get it in alphabetical order, and then cut and paste it and putting it in and making sure you're using Word appropriately for it to be presented in a professional way. Now, if you do those 4 things, you can be very, very confident that the academic work that you're presenting to your assessor is going to be more than palatable. In other words, they're going to be very happy with you. And the happier they are, the happier you'll be, because your result will mirror that happiness. I hope that answers that question. If it doesn't, ask another, please. I think you can do that in Word as well, the alphabetical. Yes, you can, but the problem with doing it in Word is you have to create a table, then you have to do the sorting. If you do it in the spreadsheet, it will take a table across, and then you can just do that quick change to text. So if you want to do it in Word, by all means, but it's a bit messier. It really is, believe me. Okay, so that just copying and pasting the reference list item from one search into a spreadsheet, and then doing the sort, which I only learned from Vizak yesterday, and I wish he'd taught me that many years ago. I used to alphabetically order them myself. It is very useful. No, I don't know where you got the idea we put references in footers. No, that's not the APA standard at all. Citations have to reside within the paragraphs that we've written. They have to nestle up against the idea, the first expression of that idea, not the development of that idea. And then the citation then refers to a reference item that's in the reference list. And all reference list items must have a citation. So you can have multiple citations for one reference list item, but all citations must have a reference list item, okay? Does a para apply to every assessment? Absolutely. Yes, you're supposed to be showing your understanding of what you've done, not somebody else's understanding. So even if, and I can't even imagine why, a lecturer would say, oh, yeah, it's all right, you can use it. That would not cop for me, because I want to understand what I'm writing. If I'm just copying someone's work and shoving it in my assignment, where's the understanding? Where's the evidence of understanding? And what do I take away? What's the takeaway from me? Nothing. I've got nothing to take away from that. In fact, all I've done is done something that I learnt when Word first became apparent to me, which was, I think, 30 years ago. I learnt, the very first thing I learnt was how to cut and paste. I think I could get a 2-year-old to do that. So if you want to value your academic career with that of a 2-year-old, then of course you just cut and paste and see what the results are in terms of your understanding of the concepts that you're meant to know within your subjects. People who are serious about understanding what they do will do much, much better when you progress. This is getting a degree is just a roadblock. Okay, you have to get a degree these days because most organisations out there demand that people that are applying for positions have degrees. Now, back in my mum and dad's day, none of them had degrees, and they were doing similar jobs to what I'm doing now. Okay. Now, the reason why people have wanted people to come to university is because they know when you go to university, you have an opportunity to understand theories at a very deep level, and therefore you'll have recall to multiple theories whenever you're put in front of a problem. And so therefore you have multiple ways of dealing with that one problem. My poor old daddy only had one way, and of course, as he got older, he became redundant to the organisation because they wanted people that could look at problems and work out new ways of doing things. Ian Kirkwood has a very good name for this. He calls it entrepreneurship, and it's a very good name for it. It's where we're trying to change the organisation from within. So we're doing things a new way, not just for the hell of it, but because it's going to be more efficient, it's going to be more effective. And that comes from an understanding. That comes from this thing in here, not from going away and having to read books. People want people to be able to work on the fly, and that's what you've got to develop. I find it a bit hard to write in my own words. No, you don't. You're telling yourself you find it hard to write in your own words. You've just written in your own words. There it is. I find it a bit hard to write my own words when I get an idea from someone else's work. Well, you're just writing in your own words. I can't state this enough. When you understand something, it's very easy to write about it. Okay, even a couple of rereading, it can look a bit different to the original one. Absolutely. That's not understanding. That's your mind actually looking at this problem and going, well, hang on, there's 2 or 3 ways to look at this. Well, that's not wrong. That's absolutely correct. And from your cultural perspective, I think the problem that most students have is they don't understand that just because an Englishman says one thing and you're thinking another doesn't mean that you're misrepresenting. You're not misrepresenting at all. You're going, well, hang on, I don't actually see it that way. I see it this way. You're still referring to their idea, but you're referring to it in a way that makes more sense to you. You need to start being more confident about who you are. There's nothing wrong with who you are. There's nothing wrong with your mind. And you can write things. You've written quite a substantial bit of text there without any issue at all. Okay, so just understanding the idea is what it's all about. And it's not difficult. It's an art. It needs practice. I'm not suggesting you can do it immediately, but you can do it. And don't tell yourself you can't, because as soon as you tell your mind it can't do something, of course, I can't do it. Okay? I've been very fortunate that I grew up with a mother who said there was no such word as can't. And so my whole life, I've never thought I can't do anything. There are some things I'm very bad at, okay? But I don't think I can't do it, okay? You wouldn't want me to sing, for instance, okay? But I can sing, but I'm not very good at it. So you wouldn't want me to sing, okay? And of course, we're here to help you. Okay, so if you're having difficulty with these skills, if you're having difficulty with overcoming your own concerns about oneself, we have people here to help you. The wellbeing team can help you get over your own doubts about yourself, and that's all it is. If the edited article have chapter authors, then in one text site we should use or the editor's name. Okay, so when you go to, so if you're going to look at an edited work, that's a book. Well, the quotation in the one search, so let me answer that question like this. The quotation in the one search will tell you exactly how to reference it. Okay, so you won't have to think about it, just copy and paste. However, that's where you can copy and paste, by the way. However, let's go back. Excuse me, sorry for coughing into the microphone. So let's go back here. Are you looking for an edited work? Let me have a look. If somebody can see it there, please yell it in my ear. Here we are, book with editors. Okay, so there's book with editors, and yes, it's the editor that you refer to. Okay, so very good question. I didn't know the answer. I never worry about learning all the intricacies of referencing because there's no need to. Okay, the idea with referencing is to always refer back to the citation. So the very last thing I'm saying to you is you've done all that copy and pasting, you've done that alphabetizing, you've put it in, you've done that. Then the very last thing you must do is ensure that there is, for every citation, there's a reference list item, and for every reference list item, there's a citation. One-on-one at minimum. You can have multiple citations for one reference list. That's fine. And then you must make sure that each of those citations are done properly. Okay, we've gone through a little bit of that. And then you must go through all the reference list items, referring to your document to make sure they actually comply. Okay, you haven't got an excuse when you submit it if for some reason there was an error and the quotation was given you to one section. I can pretty much guarantee they'll all be right, but I can't say 100% because if I say that and you find an error, you're going to come to me and say, Brett, you don't know what you're talking about. And that's fine. That's good. You'd be very right to do that, but you need to always check your own work. That's the last thing one must always do with any assessment is read it. You must read your own work. You're going to perpetrate it on some poor old assessor to read it. You must read it. If there's problems in your work, fix it. If you look at it, you think, oh, that's ugly, fix it. Make it look nice. Make it look professional. Ensure there's no errors in it. And if there's no errors in it, then you're going to maximize your result. Okay. I hope I've answered everyone's questions. I hope I haven't upset anybody. That's not what I'm trying to do here. I do want you to get confident that you can paraphrase. Far too often I hear students tell me they can't paraphrase it. It's not correct. You can, you just have to understand the idea. Once you understand an idea, you can express it. If your English skills are letting you down, then obviously you need to think about that. We have an English advisor that's available to you. You can see her on a weekly basis. So make sure that you let me know if you've got those issues. And obviously paraphrasing in a second language is going to be difficult if you haven't got much recall to that second language. But if you've got recall to English as good as me or approaching mine, you shouldn't have any problems with paraphrasing. All right then, well, I'm not hearing anything in my ear. I'm not seeing any text jumping up on the screen. If there's anything that you want me to share with you from today's session, don't be afraid to email me, Brett, BRETT.Vance, VANCE, @jcub.edu.au. And I'll be more than happy to share whatever it is that you want. If you want me to look through any assessments you're working on, just send them to that email address. I'll be more than happy to review them for you and give you some feedback. I thank you very much for coming along today, and I thank you that are watching the recording. I hope you enjoy the recording. This is a much better version of what I did last trimester. I've reviewed it significantly from last trimester, so if you saw the session I did last trimester, this is much, much better. It's much more focused, and it's actually correct in terms of efficiency. So I hope this helps you to be more efficient in your referencing and your research. And I look forward to you asking me whatever questions you need to ask me when you feel the time is there.